It's the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James, joined today by the Honorable G.T. Thompson, Chairman of the House Agriculture Committee and a representative from the 15th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. So it hasn't changed. You haven't been here long enough for them to change your district number.
Well, I have. I started out Pennsylvania 5 for at least 10 years, and then I had to go out and buy a bunch of ones to make it 15. Tony, it's just great to be with you, my friend. Thanks for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, and you're going to get the opportunity to write a farm bill.
Yeah.
You look back in history at the number of chairmen who've been able to write a farm bill, and there's not a whole lot of them.
No, we've had 53 chairmen altogether since 1820. I'm the 53rd, but many of those never had the opportunity to write a farm bill.
Exciting?
It is exciting. It can be a little overwhelming at some point, but it's been good. Yeah, it's been good because of the intensity of how we've been working. We really picked up the intensity the past 2.5 years. I mean, listening sessions all over the country. I've been somewhere over 40 states, a couple states multiple times based on the size of their agriculture industry, and that's just in the past 2.5 years. We have more to go. Great hearings here in Washington. We really have picked up the tempo of those since January, and so I look. It's I use a baseball analogy where with the farm bill we're rounding first base. We collecting great information. We're still collecting that information, bringing back the voices of American agriculture to the table here in Washington. And we hit second base. We're going to be starting to write this thing, and then we get to third. That means we've done a markup in committee. That'll probably be early September, is my hope. And of course, we'll cross home plate when we get this thing passed and enacted into law.
Let's stick with your baseball analogy then. What inning are we in?
Well, we're probably at this point, I would say, based on the clock, because the Farm Bill does expire the end of September, and I tell people I've got one goal, thousands of objectives. So one goal is we're going to do this Farm Bill in a bipartisan, bicameral way, on time, and highly effective. And so the highly effective part is because we bring in so many voices of American agriculture to the table. We've good information to work with to do this right and do it the way that deserves to be done. But what inning we're in, I would say we're probably, I'll be generous, say we're in the 5th inning.
Okay. I was wondering whether I could take the baseball analogy one more time around here, but I don't think I will.
Well, we'll tell you there's not going to be any 7th inning stretch.
Okay.
We're just going to
keep going.
We're just going to keep going.
Well, part of getting a farm bill through is not just doing it through your committee. You've got to get it on the floor and then passed.
That's correct.
We've seen a farm bill that didn't pass. And that was a few years ago.
2014.
There are some concerns right now in farm country as to whether or not a farm bill can pass. Do you share some of those concerns right now?
I don't, only because we're working hard and doing the right things, again, in a bipartisan way. There's always rhetoric out there, and quite frankly, you get a few voices in the wilderness, even among some, just a handful of my members in Congress, both sides of the aisle, but they're a small fraction, and I'm very confident that we're going to get this done, and again, we're going to meet all those metrics that I've outlined. I've got a lot of confidence that we'll do that. I shared that, I was summoned to the White House here about 3 weeks ago with Chairman Stabenow and Ranking Members Bozeman and Scott. And I sat there with the President. We were down in the lower level in the library and small round table. The President's sitting over here to my left. And I will say the President and some of the Democratic members there were kind of negative on the Farm Bill. At the time we were waiting on the debt ceiling. We've got that done. And I knew we would get it done because there's a deadline. And unfortunately, deadlines are meaningful in this town, right? And so I tried to convince the President. I wanted to be give him some encouragement. So I talked about how I've been in, at that point, 41 states in the past 2.5 years. Tony was really funny. He sort of sobered up and leaned forward and looked at me and said, "Are you running?" As if I'm running for president. So I paused for impact and I said, "Yes, Mr. President, I am running to get a farm bill done. Because that's what we need. That's what American agriculture needs to have. That's what every American family needs to have happen because of what this #1 industry of agriculture provides for every family."
Let's talk about, you brought in the not necessarily the budget, but the debt ceiling part of this. Money, finding the money to make sure that we can do this. There are some options out there, I guess. One, extension, baseline bill. Where do you find us in all of this?
We're going to need some new dollars. An extension is, if we have to do that, that's, it would be very unfortunate because we've missed the opportunity to make the improvements and refinements that I'm absolutely convinced we need to do based on what I've heard from the people of agriculture all across this country. We're going to need some new dollars. I think there's some opportunities. There are some dollars that were really earmarked by the administration or in Democrat-led legislation in the 117th Congress that were earmarked related to agriculture that have not been spent yet. And so I think those some of those were addressed in the debt ceiling, but there's just a small fraction. There's more out there. Now, if it's already, the check's been written, that's fine. But if it's just sitting there in a pot of money that somebody in the administration can arbitrarily exercise, I think that's fair game. Well, and the other one I put on the table, and I really appreciate the support of our budget chairman, Jody Arrington. He's a good agriculture guy, right? Lubbock, Texas, just a dear friend, brother in the Lord. He and I have talked about about how 80% of what we've spent on agriculture since the 2018 Farm Bill has been outside the Farm Bill. It's been that disaster money, right, for weather, for trade, for COVID, and specifically in the weather-related. That is never done very efficiently when you pass a disaster bill, because you get a bill like that, you do it emotionally. And when you do bills emotionally, you don't always do the best possible job. And quite frankly, there are elements of Congress that will hang other bills, spending bills, like Christmas ornaments on it. And so you do a lot of overspending because you have to get this done emotionally because of the disaster impact on agriculture. I've been working for 2.5 years, and I think and Chairman Arrington is supportive of the concept. Let's take some of those monies from disaster relief, incorporate it into crop insurance. It will make crop insurance more attractive. We'll get more subscriptions, which helps bring income in. And at the same time, we will save money because we will save money by avoiding the typical emotional disaster. Now, we're going to have to do some of that disaster because you can't always anticipate what happens to the American farmer. But I think a lot of it we could take care of by incorporating into there. And that would give us some new dollars to use. Now, we're probably going to need more than that ultimately, but I think that's a great start.
Some of that money was earmarked for CCC, Commodity Credit Corporation, through USDA. Are you looking into that as well? Or are you kind of looking at how that CCC money has been invested?
Well, actually, the Agriculture Appropriations Subcommittee really took a preemptive strike on that with the bill that they passed out of their subcommittee for appropriations in terms of looking at what was appropriate, restoring some new guardrails and guidelines, or reaffirming previous guardrails and guidelines on the Commodity Credit Corporation. So that's led by Chairman Andy Harris, and I appreciate the work that they did. I'm not sure that we're going to have to. I think they perhaps, if this is successful the whole way through the appropriations process, that will address that issue. Because I do think there was a little more liberty taken in dipping into that CCC than what it should have been. That is supposed to help farmers, that fund when they get into issues, right? It's to pay off the crop insurance. It's to help pay the dairy margin coverage when it's triggered by the margin. It is it is where we do we pay for the conservation programs. All things that are are really about helping farmers facing struggles and issues. And quite frankly, what USDA did were worthy programs that should have been done of the administration working with Congress, and we've done it legislatively. We've been happy to do that, but that's not what happened. Things like how do you help small processors? How do you get more competition in protein processing? Well, they did this program, the climate friendly commodity or grant program that they did. All things that were new opportunities to grow, but really didn't address financial challenges. And without that element of addressing the financial hardship for farmers, I think to me it falls outside the definition of the authority that the executive branch has. And so I'm thinking actually through the appropriations process, those guidelines will be tightened. That's happened that way once before, at least once.
So good to see you. I know that probably keep a bag packed at all times, ready to hop in, go somewhere else. You still have a few states left?
We did. Most recently it was in Oregon. Thursday night of this week, I'll be jumping on a plane and heading to Santa Fe, New Mexico. Meeting to spend some time with some cattlemen out there. And then we'll be in Tennessee. We'll be in Connecticut and Maine. We've got some more stops to go as we head to second base and we start the process of taking all this great information and doing some critical analysis and start the process of writing the 2023 Farm Bill.
So good to see you. Come back and see us soon.
We'll do it, Tony. Thanks so much.
Again, it's the Honorable G.T. Thompson, Chairman of the House Agriculture Committee, and joins us on today's Agribusiness Report.